Good morning. Good morning. Oh, there we go. See, we're such like a jolly, cheerful, animated crowd. Animated or still image, whichever you prefer. Can people in the back hear? Good, good. There is also a live stream so that people who are not here can hopefully see and hear what's going on from the stage. I'm André Carrington. I'm Gosh, I feel so accomplished for having a name. I'm a board member of CLAGS, the Center for LGBTQ Studies, and I am so excited that you are all here. I'm so excited that we are all here, and this is going to be a fantastic couple of days. It's already been a fantastic night for some people, is what I hear. But it will continue to be a fantastic weekend. And for those of you like going to Toronto afterward and then going to FlameCon later this summer, this is kind of your like best, gayest, comicest summer ever. So thank you. I will just be acting as MC for our brief introduction this morning. I'm glad to welcome you all to New York City if you haven't been here before or in a while. Pardon the mess. And I am really pleased to welcome you to the Graduate Center and pleased to welcome you to the work that CLAGS does. To extend that welcome a bit, I'm going to introduce our Executive Director, Dr. Kevin Nadal. Kevin is Associate Professor of Psychology at John Jay College and here at the Graduate Center and is the Executive Director of CLAGS. He will say a few words about our mission, what we do, and why we're so happy to have you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited that you're all here as well. How many people here before registering for the conference had heard about CLAGS? Raise of hand. Good, so many CLAGS supporters. So for those of you who haven't heard about CLAGS, let me just tell you a little bit about us. CLAGS is the first university-based LGBTQ research center in the country. I think in the world, but I don't know for sure. But definitely in the country. We've been around since 1991, and we're celebrating our 25th anniversary next year. So I wanted to invite you to join us in all of our celebrations next year. CLAGS is focused on the study of LGBTQ people and experiences. We're interdisciplinary. We range from everything from the humanities to social sciences to health and education. And we're really focused on trying to understand LGBTQ people's lives as well as making the world a better place for LGBTQ people. We have a lot of different things that we do through our center. For example, we have conferences like this one. This past month, we also celebrated 2 other conferences. One was the LGBTQ Scholars of Color Conference for people who identify as both LGBTQ and people of color, as well as academics and researchers. And last week, we had our LGBTQ Health and Medical Pedagogies Conference. And so that was for individuals who are specifically in the health field. We have a lot of events that I want to invite you all to as well. On May 27th, we have a party at Stonewall, historic Stonewall Inn, to celebrate the end of our semester. So for those of you who are around in New York, I'd love to see you there. We'll have performances, we'll have prizes. If you attend, we were lucky enough to get some prizes donated from Fun Home, the award-winning or the award-nominated, I spoke too soon, the Tony Award-nominated musical on Broadway right now. So if you come, you could win 2 tickets to Fun Home. So please attend that. And I'm also very, very excited to tell you about our event on June 23rd, which is a conversation with Janet Mock. Janet Mock is a New York Times bestselling author. She's also the host of a TV show on MSNBC called So Popular. And as you may know, she's a transgender activist and community leader. And finally, I also wanted to tell you about some of the other things that we do. We really want to promote LGBTQ research and scholars, and to stimulate people to do research and scholarship. So we offer 11 fellowships through our program, everything ranging from distinguished awards like our Kessler Award this past year, which is given to somebody who has had lifetime achievement in LGBTQ studies. This year we gave it to Dr. Kathy Cohen. And we also have graduate student awards, travel awards, awards for artists, including our Giard Fellowship Award. And so those are things that you can apply for as well. And finally, I just wanted to say thank you to all the wonderful people that made this conference happen. We have a list of people here in our program, and I want to just give them the recognition that they deserve. So first, I want to thank our CLAGS staff, particularly to Yasmina, Yana, Noam, to Nancy. We can give them all a round of applause as we keep on going. Our CLAGS board members, to Andy Spieldenner, to Kale, to Stephanie Sue, Michael Yarbrough, Riley Snorton. Give them a round of applause. We wouldn't be able to do this without our funders, and so our funding comes from the Gill Foundation, the New York Council for the Humanities, the CUNY Diversity Projects Development Fund, Geeks Out, as well as the CUNY Graduate Center. So give them a round of applause. We want to thank our keynote speakers and our special guests, including Howard Cruz, Alison Bechdel, who both be keynoting. Howard will be tonight, Alison tomorrow. Jendoro Tagame will be talking today. Michael Fay for our logo design, Prism Comics and Ted Abenheim, Northwest Press and Zan Christensen. Give them a round of applause. To all the artists who donated the Queer Pinups card deck for fundraising, to Northwest Press Publisher, to Craig Bostick, Urvashi Vaid, John Jennison, and Joey Stern, to Ivan Velez, VYM Magazine, Johnny and Shasha Valor, curators of the Queer Comics Digital Art Exhibit. To Rika Takashima for her exhibit Aliens in New York. To Queer Comics Live Reading School of the Visual Arts, Keith Meyerson, Eric Ingram, Kathy Shavers, Claude Edwards, Carlo Quispe, and finally, let's give them a round of applause. And finally, I want you all to give the hugest, warmest round of applause for our conference coordinators, to André Carrington and Jen Camber for all of their work for our conference. So I officially welcome you to the Graduate Center. Please follow us at Twitter at CLAGSNY. Our website is www.clags.org. I look forward to seeing you throughout the conference. Thanks, and let's geek out, everybody.
Thank you, Kevin. So, Jen Camper. Let's have some words. Jen Camper. Besides being the person who brought the idea for the Queers in Comics conference to CLAGS and helped us come up with the notion that this is a good thing worth doing, Jen Camper is a cartoonist whose books include Rude Girls and Dangerous Women and Subgirls, who's edited 2 Juicy Mother comics anthologies, whose work appears in many magazines, newspapers, comic books, online, and in anthologies, and has been exhibited nationally and internationally. She edited the Queer Comics, Queer Pinups playing cards. And she is here to welcome all of you and to welcome many of you who have traveled great distances or traveled short distances with great effort to be here. Jen Camber.
I am so happy you're all here. I know it's not easy to take time off and come to New York, so I really appreciate the effort. You know, as cartoonists, we spend weeks and months hunched over our drawing boards, working on our comics, and we send our stuff out there and we wonder, is anybody reading this stuff? Does anybody understand what I'm saying? And you guys are here because we are reading your work, and we understand what you're saying. And your work is very important. It was in June of 2013 that I decided, you know, we should throw a bash and invite all the queer cartoonists. And my girlfriend, Emily Aliquo, said, Jen, if you do this, I will help you, I will support you. So Emily, thank you, because none of us would be here without her. But of course, course, our apartment wasn't big enough to hold you all. So our good friend Sarah Ingram, who's right here, said, why don't you go to the people at CLAGS? And thank you, Sarah, because I did go to the people at CLAGS. And goddamn if they didn't say yes. So here we are, and we have 2 jam-packed days. We have 113 presenters, queer cartoonists, publishers, editors, and scholars. It's kind of crazy. And we're going to talk about our work, our craft, our history, and our significance. Queer comics have really only been around about 40 years. And in those 40 years, we've created some amazing comics. And I want to read a list for you. This is just a few of the topics that queer comics covers. Coming of age, coming out, young adult, funny animals, medicine and health, superheroes, biography, political and editorial comics, social commentary, history, historical fiction, travel, science fiction, speculative fiction, and fantasy, literary fiction, transgender comics, comics by lesbians, dykes, gay women, and queer girls, comics by gay men, queens, bears, and clones, bisexuals, pansexuals, and asexuals, gender queer, gender nonconforming, gender blurring, gender bending, and the hell with gender completely. We have Latina, Arab, Asian, Black, white, indigenous, and mixed race comics, and we have sex. We have sensual sex, we have erotic sex, pornographic sex, fetish sex, funny sex, heartbreakingly sad sex, triumphant sex, rough sex, romantic sex, kinky sex, sweet sex, and Gengor Tagame sex. We have queer comics that are serialized comics, graphic novels, mini comics, and zines, and that list is just 2 shelves in my comics bookcase. I met a fan last year who told me that she loved my work, especially my book Subgirls, and she told me that she had been reading Dykes to Watch Out For, and she had gone to see Fun Home the Musical with her mother. This fan was 9 years old. We have created a world where queers grow up with comics that are made by themselves, people like them, and reflect themselves in their lives. And in some small way, we have changed the world. So I'm very proud to be among you, and I'm really excited to see where we're going next. While we're here, I want you to draw on all the chalkboards. I want to see a giant cartoon jam, and Friday night when you leave, we're going to photograph it, and then it's going to be erased. And also while you're here, instead of live tweeting this conference, we're going to live cartoon it. There's a whole bunch of giant Post-its, and I would love you to draw your experiences in this conference and post those, and later we'll put them all online. We have a lot of events going on around this conference. They're all in your program. And thank you to everybody who worked so hard to make this happen. While you're here, I hope you meet some of the cartoonists whose work you love. And I hope you discover some new cartoonists and some new comics that you love. I hope you learn some new ways to think about comics and new ways to write and draw. I hope you make friends. I hope you flirt. I hope some of you get a little frisky. I hope you get a chance to go out and see New York City while you're here. I hope you meet people who will mentor you and people who you will mentor in return. And I hope you meet people who will become your colleagues and friends, maybe for the rest of your life. But most of all, I hope after this conference you go home and you create more comics because we are all very excited to see them. So thank you, have fun. So we are going to show a sneak preview of the trailer for the film No Straight Lines, which is a documentary on queer comics and queer cartoonists. And it is made by Vivian Kleiman and Greg Sirota and Justin Hall. And when André presses the button, we'll get to see it. I always drew comics, and it was a way of fighting back against people who had power over me, and I didn't like always what they said or did.
Timing was very good for Fun Home to come out when it did, because the critics were ready to accept a comic book as a book and a queer story as a human story.
I'd pretty much given up on comics because they were a very censored medium. But then the underground comics movement came along, and it felt like, well, that sounds like something interesting to get into. Comics were a frontier that was waiting to be crossed, is the thing.
The fact that it was an underground medium was perfect because I was still hiding, things from my mother under the mattress. And she found them, of course.
Simply portraying gays as human beings was a political act. There were probably a lot of aspiring cartoonists out there who, like me, felt that they had to choose between being open about being gay and having a career.
I wanted it in people's bathrooms. It's subversive, it's so out there about something that's so hidden. It's better to start it there.
When people who don't have power laugh at people with power, that's one of the most revolutionary things you can do. And in my comics, even when you're dealing with difficult things like AIDS or sexism or violence and rape against women or racism, humor is a really effective way to cut down the oppressor. And maybe because we were still marginalized, it allowed us to really do whatever the hell we wanted.
I knew instinctively that when I started gay comics that was the perfect place to come out. Doesn't mean I wasn't really scared. There's a sequence in Wendell when Ollie finally decides to come out to his family, and he's being very bold about it, and he gets his little mess letter, and he puts it in the mailbox, and then has an anxiety attack, sort of hugging the mailbox, and what have I done, and I knew it was something I couldn't take back.
During the early parts of the 80s, AIDS had just sort of started coming up. I didn't want to speak for people with AIDS, but I wanted to speak for the experience that we were all going through of losing so many of our peers.
When I started in comics, no attention was paid to undergrounds or indies. It was all Marvel, DC superheroes. And that discouraged me from even bothering to go to comics conventions for a long time. During those days, Eddie would sometimes sit with me, and he would remark that people would come along and approach the table idly the way they did everywhere else, and then it would be like there'd be this force field. They would suddenly realize, gay, and bounce off the force field. Same boring inscription every time.
I had never been part of the comics world, but gradually it has become a place that accommodates so many more kinds of people doing so many more kinds of work.
Big guys, bear guys, are sort of always comic relief, or they're the bad guys in mainstream comics a lot of the time. They're made to be ugly and mean. And I wanted to have the opposite of that. I wanted to create a counterpoint.
Some women, when I was first drawing, felt that my work was too sexist and I was objectifying women. I'm a dyke. I do objectify women. I love them. I find them sexy.
I had a lot of security guards coming up to my booth repeatedly, day after day, saying, "It looks like you caught me coming out of the shower with that picture." I think pink nipples and pink eyes and pussy underwear, it's pretty obvious what's going on. So that aspect of it has been really interesting for me, what people look through.
A friend of mine just made a very funny comparison. She said, "You're lucky you got into this when you did. It's like you bought a co-op right before the real estate boom." It's a much more competitive field than it was. That's partly why I got into it as a young person. There was no pressure.
When you're the first in something, it's true that you've got a giant wave behind you. You're just so much a part of history, whether you realize it or not. So even though it felt personal, I was just a little droplet in a wave.